some of the pros and cons of the deck list if you haven't gotten to see a league with it before. You're predominantly instant speed. I used to be able to say all instant speed, but now they ran one copy of Kaito in the main deck, so now it's no longer all instant speed in the main. But you get to hold up mana, and when your opponent doesn't do anything that forces you to counterspell or force negation or logic knot, subtlety, whatever, then you get to start taking over the game with card advantage spells like Wan Shi Tong and Consult the Star Charts. Cling to Dust also fits in that category of just being able to let you pull ahead on cards until you're eventually able to land a threat and beat your opponent down. In the sideboard, we got 3 copies of Mystical Dispute, 4 copies of Consigned to Memory, Toxic Deluge into Damnation, and some sweepers, 4 Break the Ice and Harbinger of the Seas against the greedy mana bases, and a Nihil Spellbomb against some of the graveyard shenanigans and Flage and whatnot. I really want to kick or to overload a Break the Ice, so I hope we run into Tron at least once and we get to do that, because that would bring me a lot of joy and I would consider the league worthwhile at that point. It's a very noble goal as far as I'm concerned. Let's find our first opponent. I know the last couple times we've played this deck, we've played against a good bit of Tron or Eldrazi variants. We've played a good bit of Boros. I know we lost one of our matches to Prowess. I don't remember what the other loss was to. We're on the draw. It's not the greatest hand in the world. We do have a little bit of interaction. Kind of hope we're against a creature deck and not something that's gonna beat us in the face too quickly. Roll with it. They're on the mulligan, so. Well, I said I wanted Tron. I wasn't expecting it to be literally round 1. But here we are. Talisman of Resilience. This fatal push looking a little sus. Natural Tron. I think I'm just going to try to convert this fatal push. So I'm going to fatal push with the Undercity Sewer trigger on the stack. So we get to draw this card off Thought Knot and then have our Surveil to kind of set up the next draw. Because they're just going to get to take whatever they want with Thought Knot this turn. Which I assume is just a counter spell. Yep. Okay. Natural Tron, double Thought Knot on 3. Second tower. And I don't have a way to stop a Kozilek's command anyway, so I might as well just fire off this Bowmaster. I now have a way to stop a Kozilek's command. Kind of appears that they just don't have another payoff at the moment. Opponent has found themselves another payoff. I think I'm just going to go for a kicked consult here. I don't know why I didn't cast that before the Sowing Myco Spawn trigger resolved. I guess I completely forgot about the land, the loss of land. All right, so pick up a Field of Ruin and double Shieldred's Edict. Interesting. So do I want to just double Edict them here? Hold up Force Negation Subtlety. Okay. Sacrifices a non-token creature. Sacrifices a non-token creature. I have an extra blue card that I can potentially pitch to a Subtlety or a Force Negation. Talisman is fine. All right, so if I Field of Ruin, does it actually stop anything? Like I hit a mine, they get a force. If 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I don't think Field of Ruin actually does anything to them here, so I'm just gonna hold up kick star charts. Or I want to just put a Subtlety into play and try to speed up the clock. That sounds good. Try to make it a 3-turn clock instead of 6. Relic of Progenitus. So this would trigger Bowmaster if they go ahead and pop it, which makes this a 1-turn clock. All right. Beaten up on natural Tron on the draw. That's kind of cool. You get to bring in like 1,000,000 Tron hate cards. What am I interested in cutting? I know Spell Snare is like the card everybody immediately jumps to, just like, oh, cut Spell Snare against Tron. But Spell Snare against Tron is a lot better when you've got Harbinger of the Seas coming in, because you can use Spell Snares to fight over mana rocks and not have to waste like counter spells or force negations or something like that. Plus, we've got Break the Ice coming in. So we've got a lot of answers to lands. So I kind of want to come up with a sideboard plan that lets me leave in at least some number of spell snares. Fate Transfers become a sideboard card for the Sultai deck. Still kicking around for a 5-0, but 4-1, 3-2 twice was a decent showing. Yeah, that's a pretty good start for a modern brew. All right, need lands to cast spells. Spell Snare and Cling. Well, like I said, Cling's fine to cut, but Spell Snare still just like works into this mana denial plan that I kind of want to prioritize. Am I force negationing or am I consigning? I guess I'm just consigning. Let's get a Watery Grave. I've got just like a whole lot of Break the Ices and stuff to draw into. Got Force Negation or Subtlety next turn, plus maybe Bowmaster if they don't have Natural Tron. There's a Break the Ice right on time. What did they play first? They played Power Plant first, so I'm going to blow up the tower. Fair. Usually, one of the arguments is that you're like subconsciously more likely to cast the one that you have duplicates first. And so they're like a little bit more likely to have a second power plant than a second tower. But obviously not a perfect formula. Thought Not Seer. Let's see what's on top before we make a decision. Field of Ruin. Okay. So I'm going to keep that on top, and I'm going to subtlety off the force negation here. And it puts Thought Knot Seer on top, which means I get to Field of Ruin here. The question is, do I want to just let them draw this Thought Knot Seer again and cast it, and I can Wan Shi Tong, draw a card, and then Field of Ruin to draw another card? I think I like that. Let me just start getting a better clock going. Takes my Logic Knot. Another copy of Tower. All right. So if they've got Kozilek's Command, they're gonna have Kozilek's Command regardless of what I do. So we'll take the action that gets them farther off of Tron. Now I have a chance to draw into Break the Ice or Counterspell. I think I would rather get the Swamp and try to high roll Break the Ice. I think that's the better top deck for me. All right. Go ahead. Labyrinth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for Eldrazi. Trinosphere. Consult here. Okay. You have another Thought Knot? Roseth. How many Thought Knots are we going to cast in a match? They are down to 0 cards, which I guess is something. So attack with both. We're going to flash in Bowmasters, ping them for 1. Block with the token. Drew Kozilek's Command. All right. Pretty hot draws on the Tron side. Our opener wasn't fantastic, but I don't think it was that bad. I just spent $500 on my Wan Shi Tongs and Fields. That's a lot to spend on. What are Wan Shi Tongs going for right now? I'm assuming like fancy Wan Shi Tong. 50. Oh, for the foils. Sure. That's crazy that TCG players got the regular ones for 90 and the full arts for 55. Oh no, this is pre-release. Never mind. So the regulars for 35, the full arts for 55. All right. I got foiled time spiral fields. Are those like the retro border ones? Yeah. Yeah, those are dope. Give a very wasteland strip mine style feel. Sorry, consign. Land. No. Well, opponent has had natural Tron 2 out of 3 games. So there's that. They've had natural Tron and Thought Not Seer multiple times. Land. Land. Okay. Well, we kept a 2-lander with a Surveil in our 24 land deck. Didn't get there. I'm not going to feel bad about that. Feel just so good when it's good, but this happening is the worst. Yeah. It's a bummer adding more double pit cards that you want to cast on turn 2 into your 4 Field of Ruin deck. All right, I'll give you this one. Oof, that was rough. That was rough. Oh, back-to-back Eldrazi. It's like a plane going overhead right outside. What happened to your lands? Well, you see, I kept 2 of them with a surveil, and I proceeded to draw no more, but instead drew a bunch of uncastable cards. Sure. See if we can slow things down a little bit. This turn's probably going to be like cast one, she, surveil. Maybe they put a Myco spawn on the stack. I get to draw a card. Malevolent Rumble, or we got, yeah, Malevolent Rumble, Windswept Heath, Chrysalis, Talisman of Impulse. Opponent picks up Windswept Heath. So now I am not going for the Wan Shi Tong here. Opponent does not go for their Windswept Heath. If I was a betting man, I would say they have a Kozilek's command. Color me shocked. And we'll probably just go ahead and go for the Field of Ruin. Like on their draw step. Or, no, we'll just go ahead and do it now. Do it now so they can't float the mana if they have like a Kozilek's command. Oh, yeah. Fair enough. Let's move on to game 2. So I will say these two games so far have really showcased a fundamental problem I've had with this deck. And it's the idea that it's really cool when like the game slows down and you get to like take the time to set up a lot of these plays. Not so much when your opponent doesn't give you the opportunity to slow things down and you need to go fast, you need to match pace. That's where I think this deck like really struggles. Like if you're both playing the long value draw cards game, you look really good. But as soon as your opponent's like, here's something you have to deal with or die. Here's another thing you have to deal with or die. You don't really have the ability to like speed up your own game plan. It's also where I've really liked Kaito in the sideboard. So you just bring those in and say, like, I've got turn 2 Bowmaster, Wan Chi into Kaito. Speaking of Bowmaster into Kaito. I think I wouldn't have forced negation the sprawl, just untapped and fielded it. Possibly. My argument at the time was like they played sprawl or they played a tapped land on turn 1. If I counter the sprawl and they have another just like 1 mana producing land, they might not be able to play a 4-drop on 3. So I could just slow them down by 2 turns with this. But if I let the sprawl resolve and they've got like any land on 2 into any land on 3, they're casting a 4-drop. So it's definitely a risk play. Like, I don't hate not forcing it at all. That was just my reasoning for it, was trying to get the upside. Like, in game 1 against Tron, especially, or game 1 against any sort of Eldrazi variant, I am so much more likely to take the aggressive high road route and take a lot more risks to try to set up like a stealing a win game 1. Game 2 and 3, probably a lot less likely, but game 1, I'm usually very much trying to force the issue and make something happen. Like this. I want to force negation this, get down Bowmaster, untap Kaito, start finding cards. Just do this on an empty board. And I'm not going to show them Field of Ruin yet. All right. That's pretty huge. Just looking for. That's pretty good. It's pretty good, but I don't think I'm playing that out this turn. I think I'm waiting until next turn. I really want to play that out on a turn that they're like tapped out from a 4-drop. Not on a turn that they can just end a turn, Harbinger, untap, kill me. So hopefully this is like a Chrysalis. That works too. Three, 6, 7, 8. One off of lethal, but if I stun, then they can't crack their wooded foothills. And I can just fetch up a swamp, play Harbinger, pass. And if they got a way to get out of this, I would love to see it. Do they play Thought-Knots here in ramp? Usually not. Usually it's just Myco Spawn and Chrysalis. And we saw Chrysalis game 1. So I would not be expecting Thought-Knots here in the 75. But even if they untap and Thought-Knot Seer there, let's say they were playing it, then they untap, they cast Thought-Knot Seer, I double Bowmaster them, they take my Harbinger, and like the plan doesn't really change. I still just get to untap, Kaito down their guy, attack in for a bunch, like have lethal right after. Maybe Subtlety is better than 2 of the copies or 4 copies to Break the Ice first ramp. I really don't want Subtlety against the Myco Spawn Chrysalis deck. It's a lot better against the Karn Thought-Knot Seer Sire deck. There's just way less cast triggers. All right, so opponent mulliganed. This last game, they had actually 0 colorless lands to play. No, they had a Sanctum of Ugin last turn or last game. They had a target. And like their deck with yeah. They had Sanctum of Ugin. Their deck like can't function without colorless mana. Because if they're not casting Kozilek's commands and stuff, then like who cares? I think I'm throwing this back. Bruh. It's a rough mulligan. Like they have to have colorless to cast Devourers and Kozilek's commands and stuff. or get ahead on mana to get up to their 4 drops. Yep. Opponent gets Cavern of Souls, mills over, triple Ugin's Labyrinth after playing an Ugin's Labyrinth. You know what would have been really good right here? Like, kind of backbreakingly good. Unlucky island, like we don't have 8 non-black producing lands in the deck with 4 break the ice. Deck plays a lot of non-swamps. I think break the ice is kind of bad. Well, won a challenge, so who are we to judge? This deck reminds me of a Lurrus deck I played in 2020. Lurrus times were great times. Yep. The Surveil before the Myco spawn shuffle is good. Can you Spreading Seas a basic land and be able to field it? No, it doesn't change the super type on the land, so it's still a non-basic land. Or it's still a basic land, sorry. Doesn't turn it into like a non-basic island. All right, so I know they still have a Cavern of Souls in hand. Yep. The old Chrysalis. See, this is why I'm not a fan of subtlety in this matchup. Like, you subtlety the Chrysalis, they get the cast trigger, and then untap, get the cast Chrysalis again. Or they have Caverns, you're not countering it anyway. I do think I'm going to consign the cast trigger because they've got this Devourer of Destiny, and I don't want them to have that. See if they sack the Chrysalis for whatever reason. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Well, we're gonna have to subtlety here. I like subtlety because you can usually try to field to shuffle it, but they still get the cast trigger. That's the problem. Like, they still get to make the spawns or search the lands off Myco spawn. So, like, shuffling away the body doesn't matter. They still get an effect off of their creatures when you're casting subtlety on them. So you're going down 2 cards for them to still get something. And if you've got the Field of Ruin to shuffle it away, that's cool. But, like, they still end up ahead in that exchange. Not ideal by any means, but sometimes it's just what you have to do versus the Eldrazi menaces. I mean, sometimes you just have to draw a 3rd land. I think 2 of these game losses could have very well been remedied by just finding a 3rd land, especially a 2nd black source. Like, if we had the 2nd black source, we could have break the ice on the Eldrazi temple so they couldn't cast this Devourer. We could break the ice on the Cavern of Souls. Does not go quite as well without the land. In a world where you have a field in play, you could have consigned the trigger on Writhing, subtlety it, untap field, draw a card, shuffle it away. So that still would have been going down 3 cards to deal with that Chrysalis and then redrawing 1. So still, like, net down 2 cards to deal with the Chrysalis. Still sounds pretty bad. Not an exchange I really want to play for. Field was kind of a 2-for-1, though. I don't think it was when they already have like 5-6 mana, though. Like, if you're arguing that fielding a temple is a 2-for-1, well, that temple's already gained them additional mana this game with the Myco spawn. So, if you get the Devourer, then sure, it's better. But that involves like them having the temp or the labyrinth tapped and not be able to just add the devourer back to hand. Like, I just think that the scenario where subtlety is good against them is involving a lot of if scenarios. Like, if all this stuff lines up correctly in this situation, then subtlety looks good. And that's a narrow window to start trying to fit a card through. Certainly not impossible, just a lot of hurdles. Because like that whole scenario involves things like, well, we've got the Field of Ruin, we've got the Wan Shi Tong down, we've got the Consign, we've got mana, they've got Cavern of Souls, they've got a playable card under an Ugin's Labyrinth, and the Labyrinth is tapped, and all right, I guess yes, if all of these things come together, then subtlety is halfway playable. Still not good, but kind of does something. Boo. Opponent last seen 1 day ago on Indomitable Creativity. So that's where we're at. That's the point of the bracket, or the O2 bracket that we've made it to. All right. So opponent goes for a Ren and 6 here. Am I subtletying? I think I am. Then they get to replay Ren, get back a fetch land. And I think I go ahead and Wan Shi Tong now. Or like after they take up Ren on the fetch land. because if they have to go land, like fetch land to cast a lightning bolt or something on the Wan Shi Tong, I get to draw a card. If they don't do that, I might get to Kaito. Now they get to Ren and 6, target by Wan Shi. Feels bad. So let's just ninjutsu the Wan Shi. Attack at them. Try to find a force negation. Force negation is the only thing that's stopping creativity this turn. So they're on persist. Yep. So I know they've got another fetch land in hand. Assume you just take counterspell. Sure. Yep. Fetch land unknown. That's a good draw. So we can just fatal push this token, emblem Kaito, attack at them, then have Shieldred's Edict for another token. Sure. They've already played a land. So this is fine. All right. Spellbomb I want. Harbinger I want. I don't really want Consign. Hit the ETB on an Archon, so it's not awful. It's not really anything I want to cut though. Maybe subtlety. this. It's been a hot minute since I've seen creativity. Okay. Got an answer to Reanimator Shenanigans. We got an answer to Ren and 6 on the draw. We pray once more that we hit a third land drop. Nice. I'll keep that. I think the first spot removal spell is pretty good against creativity. Just to be able to stop like a turn 4 Dwarven Mine creativity without having to burn a counter spell. So Ren and 6 plus Veil of Summer, eh? What if I just go Cling to Dust the Foothills? Or I could go for Spell Snare. They burn the Veil of Summer, then I Cling to Dust. I guess it could be like a Mystical Dispute. Either way, happy to get that out of hand. Spell Pierce. All right. Well, I wanted the second land. I didn't really want the third, fourth, or I wanted the third land. I didn't really want the fourth, fifth, sixth. Ooh, that Cling to Dust did some work, huh? I'd like you to sacrifice a planeswalker of your choice. Anyone you would like. Any planeswalker on your side of the battlefield. Vibro coming in with a 5-month resub. Thank you so much. Hope you're having an awesome afternoon. What's up is we're Dimir flashing, but we're not Dimir land dropping very well. We lost round 1 to Tron and round 2 to Eldrazi ramp. Just very much not seeing land drops. So we're seeing if we can get back into it against creativity here. Hate the big monsters. Why do you hate the big monsters? Oh, Tron and Eldrazi, sure. We had some pretty good hands. It's just 2 of our game losses were moles that kept 2 landers with the Field of Ruin and drew a bunch of break the ices, so we just like couldn't cast anything. You have something to play here. Prismari command. Okay. Don't feel a need to fight over that. Discard a Fable of the Mirror Breaker and a Thoughtseize. What does that tell me about their hand? Maybe Thoughtseize because they don't want to give up their treasure for black mana. Then why would you give up Fable? I'll pay for this. Pay for it because even if they follow up with a land, there's not really anything I care about them doing there. Keep you. Like even if they added land, they couldn't like creativity me there. So pretty fine. of the Mirror Breaker I would like to fight over. Just go ahead and use one of these. Okay. Pass back, hold up, consult the star charts, kick star charts and counter spell. And just try to set up a Harbinger for next turn. Consult could possibly find us another force negation. If they want to do nothing, then we'll Field of Ruin the Ketria Triome and consult. Actually, I don't really want a Field of Ruin because then I'm just giving them a basic mountain right before I want a Harbinger. So we'll skip that. So Black Source, counter spell. Opponent has got 2 Magic the Gathering cards in hand. Nice. I'm glad to know that we can beat creativity. Truly a terror that was on my mind. Wake up in a cold sweat from time to time thinking about indomitable creativity. See what we got for round 4. I need to do some work on the Dimir Kaito deck. So I posted a video on YouTube the other day and we played it on a stream. I'm trying to put together a Kaito list that's just all about, like, not that one. Yeah. It's all about maximizing Kaito. And just being like the best 4 of Kaito deck possible. And it's kind of fun. But it certainly got work to do. But it's fun, and my goal is to win a challenge with it. Oh. Gemstone Cavern, Exile, Temporal Mastery. What have we walked ourselves into? Gemstone Cavern, Talisman of Dominance, Temporal Mastery. Jace the Mind Sculptor. This is an Orcish Bowmaster. This up here. It's not often you get to take a screenshot of this magnitude. I don't want to miss the opportunity. When's the last time you got to see a Jace the Mind Sculptor killed by an Orcish Bowmaster? A turn 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor killed by an Orcish Bowmaster. They said it couldn't be done. They said it was the stuff of legends. Talisman. Is this like mono blue Tron or something? Mono blue taking turns. Mono blue, I have no idea what's going on. I'll take my free card. Holy shit, it is mono blue Tron. Icarus, we have memed too close to the sun. And it puts Devourer of Destiny on top. So if they go for Destiny next turn, we can Subtlety again. Swing for lethal, hopefully. Oh boy. Mono blue Tron with Jace the Mind Sculptor. Did not see any copies of like any copies of any sort of, might not even be Tron, might just be like mono blue control ramp something with Devourer, but there's no way that Talismans alone are enough to make your mono blue Devourer of Destiny deck work. I don't even like know what I want because I didn't see anything. Do I want Break the Ice? But I didn't see colorless lands. Do I want yes. Also, a good interaction to know. You cannot break the ice at Gemstone Caverns if it's got a luck counter on it. Because Break the Ice says you can blow up a land that can produce colorless. Since Gemstone, or if Gemstone Cavern has a luck counter on it, it cannot produce colorless. So, even though it's got the symbol on there, can't do it. Watery Grave. So blue black. Alright, so they are on Eldrazi Temple. Playing setup of this deck is amazing. Hope it's powerful enough. Well, it did win a modern challenge a couple days ago. So at the very least, it's doing something. Whether that something is good enough, we don't know, but Kozilek's Command. Like this deck had to make some adjustments, so yeah, there's some adjustments that that I definitely want to make. I'm just gonna get rid of Mystical Dispute and kind of pay. No, no, you don't have a counter back, do you? Brutal. Brutal. Slightly less brutal. Temporal Mastery. Okay. I could consign to memory the miracle trigger. I don't really think I want to do that though. I think I just want to let them cast this. Why don't you run a couple Riddler? Because it's not my list. I'm playing out a list that somebody else ran that did really well. And I typically don't go and like completely overhaul a deck list before I've had a chance to play it as they put it together. And I know the original variation was just trying to be all instant speed. So opponent graveyarded the sink into stupor. Have the devourer. Let's get that out of here. I think I'm going to go ahead and Field of Ruin the Eldrazi Temple. Try to shut off any double colorless shenanigans. We got a 3-turn clock. Pretty good. Three-turn clock with opponent putting nothing on the stack is even better. Jace. I will fight over Jace. Because if they bounce my Orc Army token, like the majority of my clock just goes out the window. And I'm not killing Jace on the crackback with the Bowmaster. I gave the GGs. Give the GGs back. On to round number 5. But this is the third league that I've played with some variant of this Dimir Flash deck. And the list is cool. My biggest complaint about it so far is just you don't really have the ability to proactively turn the corner. I think in order for a deck to like have a good time in a larger scale event, you need to be able to say, okay, in some of these matchups, I can be the slow, grindy control deck, but I'm going to run into situations where I need to be able to get the game over with now. And this deck completely lacks that ability, which is why I think some people put in copies, like MTG Ball said, Murktide. Some people have put in Kaito. I know Aspiring Spike had a Graveyard Trespasser in the sideboard. But you just have to be able to like hit the gas from time to time. And I think that's the biggest downfall of the deck, is it just doesn't have that gear. So I would just like to see something that kind of helps that situation out. Is this Living End? Wan Shi Tong can do it, but it's a bit too slow. If it's a bit too slow, then it doesn't do it. But I get what you're saying, but the fact is, like with Wan Shi Tong, if you're playing it out on like turn 4 or something as a 3/3, that's not really like speeding up the game, because that's still turn 4. I play this thing that's a 7-turn clock. So I'm not actually killing you until like turn 11, which is a long way down the rabbit hole. So it's kind of like vaguely trying to be the clock that you need, but it's not great at it. Oh boy. I assume they've got a consign to memory to consign their pack trigger. Never mind. They don't. They could consign the subtlety. Like, if they consign the subtlety, they still don't get to cast a Neoform on their turn, which means they still have to deal with the pack trigger on their turn or their next turn. So consigning the subtlety doesn't like stop them from dying to their pact. But they could technically take that line. I don't love this. Opponent is on a mulligan. It's a lot better. You try cutting the logic knot for 1 snare / force for 2 TAMs, made the deck a lot better for me. It still doesn't solve the problem that like I have with the deck, which again is just like that inability to close games out. Because like at that point you're talking about Tamiyo on turn 1, maybe best case scenario flip Tamiyo on turn 3 is cool, but it's not really like what I think the deck needs to do to be successful in a long event setting, a big tournament, whatever. But that's just my take on the deck. Like, I'm more than happy to let everybody disagree on that one. Goggles coming in with the follow. Thank you so much. Hope you're having an awesome afternoon. Appreciate you coming around and hanging out. What is this? Hooting Mandrills. So we'll go for the fight over this. No counter back. So what do we think their hand is? So to be fair, I think you're viewing the deck from the tempo Murktide style, and that's why you're running for a clock, when in reality, control deck shouldn't need a clock, because it should always win later game goes. And if your analysis is that you can't win by stalling, goes late, there might just be a bad control deck. It's not that it's a bad control deck. It's that control is a bad archetype. I think that's the disconnect here. Like, there's a reason none of these decks are control. None of these decks are control. This is the top control deck at the moment. And even it's got like Teferis and Narset. Days Undoing is like your unfair thing to have going on. But then like over here, blue-white control, and I'm sure, yeah, Narset, Days Undoing, like even the control decks are doing something proactive. Draw Go is not a viable archetype in Modern. There's just too many things that you have to deal with, too many different variables, too many things that are extraordinarily difficult for decks to deal with, that you have to have the ability to do something proactive or do something not necessarily unfair, but just something to get the game locked up. You can't just sit back and draw cards. Every now and then, a deck like that will do well. Like we saw Spike win a challenge. We saw Nahuel win a challenge. But there's a reason that that kind of deck just doesn't show up in Modern. So just like I understand the premise of it being a control deck, not a tempo deck. I'm just giving my thoughts on reasonings as to why it being a control deck doesn't help any of the problems it has. Or my opinion of the problems. Why I think the deck will have issues in like a large scale, drawn out event. Can we just play frogs in this deck? I mean, you could, but then it's just a completely different deck. Not completely different, but kind of goes against what they're trying to do. Bridgeworks Battle. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Fights something else. Let's counterspell that. Because my subtlety at the moment is winning the race. both on a 4-turn clock, but I get to attack first. So you know what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. This control is an archetype. Can't just sit back and win on turn 7. If they are able to answer everything, then it's a bad archetype. And like, I'm not saying to overhaul the main deck or anything like that or change up 20 cards. I just think it needs something in the 75 to say, okay, this is a matchup that I can't sit back. I need to like hit the gas. And I just don't think it has those things. Sure. This is a sorcery, so I could just surveil here. I'm not changing up the clock at all. What are your 3 least favorite things about that trash card, Psychic Frog? Huh. It's 2 CMC, so it dies to Fatal Push. It doesn't have hex proof. And it only has 1 power when it should have like 9. It should just be a 2-turn clock like all the time. I think those are my biggest issues with Psychic Frog. You play frogs or mercs in sideboard. I don't know. The last time I played the list, I played 3 Kaitos in the sideboard, and they did really well to help out in some of those grindier matchups. Like we beat Blink twice because of Kaito in the sideboard. Should also be indestructible and half persist. It should be. Just like a glaring oversight on the part of the developers to not include that text. It should have protection from white. That's a good shout out. Laugh at Teferi, laugh at Solitude, laugh at Prismatic Ending. All those should be just complete non-issues for the card. All right, opponent. Can you beat me through 4 pieces of counter magic? Cannot. So we ended that league 3-2. Despite losing round 1 to Tron off not being able to see 3rd land, and round 2 to Eldrazi Ramp not being able to see 3rd land. But we did get to come back and whoop up on some of the unfair combo decks, which pretty typical Dimir fashion, if I do say so myself. Things that I liked about the deck. When you hit your mana, it feels pretty good. Like when you get to 4 mana and you're able to start doing things like Hardcast Subtlety, Wan Chi for a card, Consult the Star Charts, Double Spell. It's a very solid feeling with the list. Whenever you are getting to 4 mana and your lands don't cooperate, it's awful. Like 2-lander with Field of Ruin and half of your deck becomes uncastable. Or we saw those Break the Ices out of the sideboard being really, really sketchy with 4 island, 4 field. If we could have seen like our 3rd, 4th land, I think it would have been less of a conflict, but it definitely contributed to why it was a conflict. Out of the sideboard, we didn't see a Damnation or a Deluge matchup. Mystical Dispute was fine. Harbinger was great. Things that I did not like about the deck. We've already mentioned the lack of a clock when you just need to hit the gas. And then I'm still a little unsure about some of these card choices. The original list had Spell Pierce instead of Force Negation, which I wasn't a fan of. I think being able to have like a hard counter, like I said, as the game goes on, is just better. Logic Knot. I don't think we ever cast Logic Knot, so hard to give an opinion one way or the other. And then Consult. I'm really not sold on Consult to Star Charts. It's a good card, but man, does it want you to top deck this thing super, super late. It just does not want to be an anticipate, and you usually don't have time to consult until much later. So I think I'd rather go down to like 2 consults for something else. Subtlety is kind of mid. Subtlety like wants to be your turn the game, turn the corner card, but it's this spot where like you subtlety something, you're not really taking advantage of the turn that you buy. Maybe you have Field of Ruin, but if you have Field of Ruin, it means that you're you haven't used it if you got like a Wan Shi Tong on board, and you haven't you don't want to subtlety something and then cast your Wan Shi Tong, because then you don't have the Field of Ruin mana to shuffle away what you subtletied. And I don't know, this 12 card package, I feel like wants to be very synergistic and just hasn't been when I've been playing the deck. Like looking at the list from the outside, it would appear to me that you want to be able to subtlety something, Field of Ruin to shuffle it away. That Field of Ruin draws you a card off of your Wan Shi Tong, and everything kind of synergizes together. But typically the play patterns I've run into are things like I subtlety something and then I want to Field of Ruin it, but I've got a Wan Shi Tong in my hand, so I don't want to Field of Ruin yet because then I'm missing out a trigger on my Wan Shi Tong. And the card advantage in this deck is okay. It's not great. So missing out on draws is a very real consideration. So now I want to like Wan Shi for full value and then Field of Ruin the turn after. But at that point, you've drawn your card that I subtletied. So now you start looking at lines of like playing Wan Shi Tong out earlier to be able to subtlety and Field of Ruin later, but then you're getting less cards off your Wan Shi Tong than you could if you played it later. And it's just like a headache to try to sequence optimally because there's so many what ifs, or trying to like Wan Shi Tong to get a draw off an opponent's fetch land in a spot where you hope that they don't have a follow-up, but when they do, it feels pretty bad. So a lot of randomly awkward scenarios that I wouldn't think would be so awkward, but turns out that they are. Why Damnation? Because that's what the list I copied played. Subtlety combos with Wan Shi Tong because you get to pitch it. That's also fair, but like, I'm kind of the mindset that if you're not running Quantum Riddler, subtlety is a liability. Just there's so many spots that you subtlety something and you pitch a card and your opponent puts it back on top and you still can't deal with that thing very well. I think subtlety is pretty good with Psychic Frog, since you can play out your frog, hit subtlety something, and get like a couple new draws for your turn and Psychic Frog attack. And it's more of a reason to like aggressively tap out early. But these lists where you're like subtlety your thing, untap, play land, go, subtlety feels kind of bad. You're just not dealing with the thing and you're like going down 2 cards to not deal with the thing.